proceed with the first
How
song.
are you all doing? Good morning and happy Friday, February 2nd. That was Aurora by Declan, provided by YouTube Music Library. It's hard to believe that it is already February, you guys. How are you all doing? Let me know if you can hear me all right. I've been having some troubles today, some tech troubles today. Some tech troubles with the stream. It didn't want to start. So let me know if you can hear me, if everything's working all right. And then we can move on to what we're doing today. Do you guys hear me? And then we can yes, it sounds like you all can hear me. I think I'm just waiting for the chat to catch up. I'll give it a we'll give it a second here while we wait for the stream to catch up. All right. I hope you all are doing all right. Today it is 33 degrees, a warm heat wave, you guys. It's 33 degrees outside. That's really warm for February. It actually looks like it's going to be a really warm week. I don't know what's going on. That's crazy. Heat wave. I don't know where it's like where you all are, but crazy here. Question for you Apple users out there, you iPhone users, have you updated to iOS 17? And if you have updated to iOS 17, have you been having troubles with it? Because I recently updated to iOS 17 from like iOS 10. I have never updated my phone, and now realized that my phone isn't working the same way as it did before, and the notification sound changed, and that kind of stinks. I don't like that. Let me know in the chat if any of you have iOS 17 and if it has been bothering you as much as it's been bothering me. All right, for today's stream, we don't really have much to talk about, but we are going to do something a little bit different where, depending on how it goes over, on how well it goes over, will depend on if I do a stream like this again in the future, because I already have another idea for it. So today we are going to be looking at making a Spider-Man movie tier list. Now, why am I doing this? About a year ago tomorrow, so tomorrow, a year from tomorrow, one of my best friends passed away. And one of his favorite things that he loved doing was making tier lists. He absolutely loved to make tier lists. He made tier lists all the time. He'd call me at like 2 o'clock in the morning and ask if I wanted to do a tier list with him. It was like his thing. And one of his absolute all-time favorite superheroes was Spider-Man. He loved Spider-Man. So, it's been a year since he's passed away, and I feel like, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this Spider-Man tier list, in his memory. And that's what we're going to do. So, I recently just sat down and rewatched every single Spider-Man movie. That's not what I wanted. Hold on. I sat down and I watched every single Spider-Man movie. Rewatched every single Spider-Man movie in order to do this. So, some of them I watched for the first time. All right. Here we go. Here is the tier list webpage. Let me try to. All right. Let's do this thing. So, like I said, I've recently have rewatched them all. Some of them I watched for the first time. I had never seen No Way Home before, so that was kind of fun to watch that. But, all right, let's start. I was just making sure that the screen was the way I wanted it to be. All right, here we go. Our Spider-Man movie tier list. Now, we're not going to be ranking these movies in order of how good they are from a film standpoint. I'm going to rank them from overall epicness. Yes, we're going to rank them from overall epicness in terms of what the movie's like. I see in the comment, I'm not going to do the games. I haven't played all the games, so I'm not going to rank the games. I've only played the first Spider-Man, so I can't rank them. All right, so here we're going to make this Spider-Man movie. Oh, man, we lost a couple people in the stream. That's kind of sad. Oh, well, you win some, you lose some. All right, so, of course, the first movie that we're going to start with is 2002's Spider-Man. Where is it? Where is it? Here it is. 2002 Spider-Man. All right, here we go. We got 2002 Spider-Man. It's the very first live-action Spider-Man that we have that we've seen, and it's the first one they made, and I think it is one of the very first Marvel movies that was ever made. Let me see. No, I don't want the list of Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. I want the list of Marvel movies in general. Because the Spider-Man trilogy is not in order. Oh, I totally lied to you guys. Okay, it was the fifth Marvel movie made. Before that was Howard the Duck in 1986, Blade in 1998, X-Men in 2000, and Blade 2 in 2002. So it was Blade 2 and Spider-Man, which I believe was directed by Sam Raimi. So Sam Raimi's 2002 Spider-Man was the first live-action Spider-Man movie. It's the Spider-Man trilogy just holds a place in my heart, special place in my heart, because it's what I grew up watching. I think it's what a lot of people grew up watching from what I talk to people about. From what I talk to people about, I think a lot of people all agree that it is it's the one we grew up watching, people in my age group. I remember watching them on VHS. I even have Spider-Man on VHS. But anyway, here we go. We have Spider-Man. You've got Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man, Kirsten Dunst as MJ, Mary Jane Watson. You have Willem Dafoe as as Norman Osborn / the Green Goblin. And you have, what's his name, as Harry Osborn, the guy that is sort of been in a lot of trouble now. James Franco, not the most favorited in Hollywood right now. And J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. So you got a pretty good cast of characters here. And it's Tobey Maguire, I think, and I've had this discussion with some friends of mine where some of my friends think that Tobey Maguire was the best Peter Parker, and Andrew Garfield was the best Spider-Man, and then Tom Holland was the best at doing them both. That's what most of my friends think. I think Tobey Maguire does a great job at being the awkward Peter Parker. So I'm on the wrong page here. I mean, so for overall epicness, it's the first time we see Spider-Man on the big screen, right? It's the first time we see Spider-Man on the big screen. You have, the likes of Willem Dafoe, who does an amazing job portraying the Green Goblin. So for overall epicness of Spider-Man, it's the very first one. I might be speaking from a little bit of nostalgia, but the very first Spider-Man, I think, deserves to be in the S rank category. I believe it deserves an S rank rating. Just checking the comments. It deserves an S rank rating. I don't know what you guys think. All right, moving on to the next movie in the list, which would be not Marvel. It would be Spider-Man 2, 2004's Spider-Man 2, directed by Sam Raimi. This got a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 7.5 on IMDb. Again, we're not necessarily ranking it on a film standpoint. I'm ranking it on overall epicness. Now, in overall epicness, also Spider-Man 2 is the only Spider-Man movie to win an Academy Award, and won the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects. Now, in my personal opinion, Spider-Man 2 is the best Spider-Man movie of all time. You have Spider-Man, Doc Ock. It's such a great movie, right? And you get the likes of Alfred Molina, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, as Doc Ock, that comes back for that movie. It's awesome. Spider-Man 2 is just, the story is fantastic. You see Peter Parker struggling on whether or not he wants to continue being Spider-Man or go forward with trying to date the love of his life, who doesn't know who he is. You see him struggling with his job at the Daily Bugle, and that J. Jonah Jameson's son is going to marry the love of his life. You have Doc Ock, this guy who is everything that Peter Parker's ever wanted to be, and then he turns into this killer octopus guy. And in Spider-Man 2, for the effects, they didn't have the effects that we have today. So Doc Ock's tentacles were actually manned by puppeteers. They were actual tentacles, and they were actually done by puppeteers. So I think that 2004's Spider-Man 2 is the best. So it gets to go over Spider-Man in the S ranking. Now, I might, after we place all these on the timeline, I might end up going around and adjusting them a little bit. But I guarantee you I'm not adjusting Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 is without a doubt the greatest Spider-Man film of all time. All right. Now we get to move on to Spider-Man 3. Oh, before we move on to Spider-Man 2, I can't talk about Spider-Man 2 without talking about Spider-Man 2 for the GameCube. The game that came out with it. I know we're not ranking games, but just as a little aside, Spider-Man 2 gave us Spider-Man 2 for the GameCube, which was just a phenomenal game. Okay, anyway, moving on to 2007's Spider-Man 3. Spider-Man 3, which was released, what was that? It was released a year before Iron Man and a year before pretty much the creation of the modern day MCU. 2007 Spider-Man 3, it got a 63% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 6.3 on IMDb. Spider-Man 3 is known as the worst one in that trilogy. Spider-Man 3, if you go and watch Spider-Man 3, it's funny. There's a lot going on with it, and I don't know what was going on. I would love to sit down in a room with Sam Raimi and just ask him what happened with Spider-Man 3. Pretty much everyone agrees that Spider-Man 3 was, I don't want to say it was a failure. I enjoy watching Spider-Man 3. It was funny, but there was too much going on in Spider-Man 3. There were too many storylines that were going on in Spider-Man 3, right? You have the storyline of Peter Parker now dating MJ and how they're getting that to work while he's Spider-Man. You have the storyline of Venom that has dropped down from the sky and has sort of taken over Peter Parker and how that turns him into Bully Maguire. You have the story of Sandman and him trying to, navigate as his Sandman and trying to save his daughter. And you have the story of the new Green Goblin as Harry Osborn becomes the new Green Goblin, and how Harry Osborn, having realized the identity of Spider-Man being his best friend Peter Parker, how he tries to go forward with that, with the voices of his father, Norman Osborn, telling him to kill him. So you have all of this stuff going on in this movie, and it's like they needed to pick a central plot. They had too many villains, too many things that were happening in this movie that it just couldn't work. Right? I think if they had picked either... I could see them having done 2 and not 3. Like, they could have either done, Sandman as the main villain, and then Harry Osborn coming in as new Green Goblin in the end, like he did in the movie, where at the beginning he hated Peter Parker, and in the end he realized, maybe I should help him. Or they could have done it, the Venom and new Green Goblin. I don't think that they should have done Venom, Sandman, and new Green Goblin. I think that that's where it fell apart. The Venom bits were funny. They brought us Bully Maguire. They brought us the famous dance scene. They really showed how cruel Peter Parker was, especially to Gwen Stacy, who was played by Bryce Dallas Howard in this movie, and how cruel he was towards MJ. It's an enjoyable watch, and it's really funny, but it's... What am I going to rank it? I'm going to rank it a B. I'm going to rank Spider-Man 3 B. All right, and then that moves us on. So we finished the Spider-Man trilogy, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. We said goodbye to our all-star cast. And we're going to move on to 2012's The Amazing Spider-Man, directed by Mark Webb. Ironically, Mark Webb, Spider-Man. The Amazing Spider-Man, 2012. Which I think... No, it's not the longest one so far. It stars Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker, Spider-Man, Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy, and then Rhys Ifans as Dr. Curtis Connors, the main villain of the movie. And we have Sally Field as Aunt May. I forgot to talk about Aunt May and Uncle Ben in the Spider-Man trilogy. But real quick, before we move on, I do want to mention them because they are great actors. And I also forgot to mention that Topher Grace comes as Eddie Brock in Spider-Man 3, and Thomas Hayden Church plays Sandman. But I do want to just mention Rosemary Harris as Aunt May, because she is just phenomenal in her job, in her role as Aunt May. She is amazing. She's an amazing actress, and I love every scene that she's in, as well as Cliff Robertson as Ben Parker. I believe Cliff Robertson has passed away, but Rosemary Harris, I think, is still alive. Yeah, she's 96 years old. All right, now let's go. We'll go back to what we were talking about. Amazing Spider-Man. I just wanted to make sure that I had mentioned them before we went on. All right, The Amazing Spider-Man. And we already went over the cast. Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, Peter Parker, Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy. I know a lot of people. My friend Ali Yoon, who I mentioned, passed away. I believe his favorite Spider-Man was The Amazing Spider-Man. He loved Andrew Garfield. And as I said, a lot of my friends think that Andrew Garfield played the best Spider-Man and Tobey Maguire played the best Peter Parker. I think the 2012 Amazing Spider-Man, in 2012, there was definitely a lot. We advanced more technologically as a society, and they were able to do a lot more in this movie than they could in the original Spider-Man trilogy. But with a lot more CGI. Um, this story followed. I think it was a little bit darker. I think the two Amazing Spider-Man movies were a little bit darker, and it's a darker story of Peter Parker. And you see in the beginning, there's something not quite right with his parents, and his parents drop him off with Aunt May and Uncle Ben, and then his parents disappear, and he never sees them again, and he's struggling to, come to terms with that as as a high school student, come to terms with his parents and what happened to his parents and where they are. And he learns that from Uncle Ben that after he finds the briefcase that his father used to work for Oscorp with Dr. Curtis Connors, and Peter decides he's going to go to Oscorp, and he sneaks into a tour group. He gets bitten by the spider, all that, all the normal stuff that happens. He meets Gwen Stacy. They sort of get together, and it's a darker story, but it's really enjoyable. I think the out of both of the Amazing Spider-Mans, Amazing Spider-Man 1 was the best. The fight with Dr. Curtis Connors in the end as the Lizard. It's a great movie. It's a great movie. I'm gonna rank the Amazing Spider-Man as A. I'm gonna give it an A ranking. It's kind of sad, and Gwen Stacy's father, Captain Stacy, and everything that happens. It's kind of sad, but it's a good one. So I'm gonna make the Amazing Spider-Man in A. I might move it to S, but for right now, I'm gonna move it to A. All right. So the next up, we have its sequel, which would be The Amazing Spider-Man 2, 2014's The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So this is we're now in the midst of the established MCU, but they decided not to bring Spider-Man into the MCU. Spider-Man, fun fact, it's not technically owned by Marvel anymore. So I don't know exactly when it was, but Marvel was going, back in the day, Marvel was going out of business. And in order to be able to stay in business, they sold off a bunch of their properties. And one of the properties that they sold was Spider-Man, and they sold Spider-Man to Sony. That's why all of the Spider-Man games now come out only on PlayStation. But, so all of these movies are actually made by Sony. They're licensed by Sony. They're not licensed by Marvel. And that's part of the reason why it took forever to get Spider-Man into the MCU. Because Sony owns the rights to Spider-Man, not Marvel. All right, so now we're going to do The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which I think it actually might be the longest Spider-Man movie at this point. It got a 51% on Rotten Tomatoes and 6.6. It got a lower score than Spider-Man 3. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 has been known as the biggest failure, I think, in the Spider-Man movie series. You got Andrew Garfield back as Spider-Man, Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy, and it brings in Dean DeHaan as Harry Osborn, and Jamie Foxx as Electro, which is really cool. But we sort of have the same thing going on that happened in Spider-Man 3, where we had too many villains. Right? We had Green Goblin, and we had Electro, and it was just too much going on. We also had Felicity Jones playing Felicia Hardy, who is Black Cat, but my guess is that that never made it into the movie. But my guess is if they made The Amazing Spider-Man 3, Black Cat would have been more involved in it, as well as Rhino, who you see at the end of the movie. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was very dark. It is a very, very dark movie. It features, Spider-Man as he struggles to come to terms with dating Gwen Stacy after Gwen Stacy's father specifically said, this world needs Spider-Man. This world needs you, but you're going to make enemies. So stay away from my daughter. And that was his dying words and Peter Parker's wish. Like Peter Parker promises Captain Stacy on his deathbed that he will stay away from his daughter. And he is a teenage boy with hormones, and he doesn't do that. And Gwen, it's not necessarily all his fault. Gwen Stacy is in it also, is like, I don't care what my father thinks, and ends up leading to a much darker Spider-Man. And as spoiler warnings, if you haven't seen the Amazing Spider-Man 2, if you don't want to hear spoilers, leave right now. But Gwen Stacy dies at the end of the movie, and it ends up leading to a very dark, very very dark Spider-Man movie. Personally, I think that they only should have stuck with Electro as the main villain in this movie. I think the whole Green Goblin bit, the whole Harry Osborn bit was a little much. Harry Osborn wasn't in the first movie. They didn't even mention him in the first movie. So to bring him in as now, oh, this is Peter Parker's, this is Peter Parker's best friend, having not even been in the first movie, was a little bit weird. I feel like the whole Harry Osborn storyline was just too much. But this storyline does focus a little bit more towards the video games. But it was weird. And I don't know what was going on with Electro, man. They made him blue. They made him like blue and just glowing blue. He was not in the Electro getup. They didn't give him the Electro like outfit, which they did in No Way Home. In No Way Home, they did give Electro, but I'll get into that later. They gave Electro the Electro outfit. I'm gonna give Amazing Spider-Man 2 a C. Sorry guys, I'm giving Amazing Spider-Man 2 a C. I'm sorry if that's heartbreaking to some of you out there, but I'm giving it a C. All right. So the next one on our list we're going to go to is, well, they don't have Captain America Civil War on here, which would technically be the next Spider-Man, would be Captain America Civil War, because that was the first appearance of Spider-Man in the MCU. That was the first appearance of Spider-Man in as Tom Holland as Spider-Man, but they don't have that on here, which is fine. He doesn't really play a big part in it. So we'll go to the first standalone Spider-Man movie in the MCU, Spider-Man Homecoming, 2017, Spider-Man Homecoming, which got a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. Spider-Man Homecoming was really great. We got Tom Holland as Spider-Man, Zendaya as MJ, Michael Keaton as Adrian Thomas, or however you pronounce it, as what is it, Vulture. You get Michael Keaton as the main bad guy. You got Marissa Tomei as Aunt May, RDJ as Iron Man. It's an incredible movie. I know that it's technically it isn't Spider-Man versus Batman, but I think it's going to be as close as we'll ever get to Spider-Man versus Batman. To have Michael Keaton play Vulture was so cool. Michael Keaton as Vulture was so cool. And because of course Michael Keaton plays Batman in Batman, and I think that was 1989. So to see Michael Keaton play the main bad guy in this movie against Spider-Man, that's as close as we'll get to Spider-Man versus Batman. And Batman is my favorite superhero, and then Spider-Man is my second favorite. So it's pretty cool to see them both on the big screen. We see Tom Holland, who plays the youngest version of Peter Parker that I think we've ever seen in any of the movies, because in the Spider-Man trilogy, Tobey Maguire is a senior in high school. It ends with them graduating. No, the beginning of the movie is them graduating, and then in Amazing Spider-Man, he's a senior in high school and he graduates in the second movie. So this is definitely the youngest version of Spider-Man. I think that director who directed this, John Watts, I believe, was saying that Peter Parker was a sophomore in high school in this movie, so he's definitely a lot younger, and we see that with Tom Holland as a much younger actor, and he goes going through like high school and how he is Spider-Man and how he's striving to be like his mentor Iron Man, and he's trying so hard, but everything that he does just sort of leads to creating more problems, despite the fact that all he's really trying to do is impress Tony Stark. He's trying to impress Iron Man so he can become an Avenger. And you see him fighting, and then at the end you see him fighting Vulture, who is his girlfriend's father, and saving all of his friends. And then finally at the end of the movie, Tony Stark comes up to him and says, "You know what, kid? We want you to become an Avenger." After the whole movie of Peter Parker saying, "I want to be an Avenger," and Iron Man saying, "Just you're young, just be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man." And at the end of the movie, Tony Stark says, "Congratulations, you're an Avenger, kid." And Tom Holland goes, "You know what? I kind of just want to be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man." It's so cool. It's so cool. I definitely think that Spider-Man Homecoming it gets an A ranking. It goes above Spider-Man Amazing Spider-Man. Now next would be Spider-Man and not Spider would be Avengers Infinity War would technically be next, I think. But Avengers Infinity War is not on this chart. Avengers Infinity War. Spider-Man is a big player in Avengers Infinity War and gets to go to space with Iron Man and to fight Thanos. And then after that would be Spider-Man, not Spider-Man, would be Avengers Endgame, which again Spider-Man played a pretty big role in Avengers Endgame. Not, I don't think he's as big of a role in Endgame as he was in Infinity War. I can't remember. All right, and then after all of that, now we get to Spider-Man Far From Home. I'm going to say right now, if you have not seen Infinity War, if you have not seen Endgame, and you do not want to spoilers, leave the stream right now because we can't talk about Far From Home without talking about the end of Endgame. So if you don't want to hear the spoilers to Endgame, I'm looking in the stream chat right now. Harry Osborn should have been the Adam in the Tom Holland movies. I think it was a different change that they needed. I think that they opened it up to bring Tom Holland back in not Tom Holland, Harry Osborn back in a different manner. I think because we don't know necessarily if the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies are over. They keep rumoring about new ones, so I think that it brings a new light into maybe bringing Harry Osborn in as a different character. All right. Anyway, and there was a reason to that. There's a reason to. Actually, yeah, I take back what I said. They couldn't bring Harry Osborn into the Tom Holland Spider-Verse, and there's a very important reason to that, and that is because of Spider-Man No Way Home. In Spider-Man No Way Home, we find out Oscorp does not exist in this universe. So without Oscorp, there is no Osborns. The Osborns do not exist in this universe, and that's really important for the events of No Way Home. But anyway, going forward for Spider-Man Far From Home, which is the second standalone Spider-Man movie in the Tom Holland Spider-Verse. Again, if you do not want to hear spoilers of Endgame and Infinity War, do not leave the stream because I have to talk about that now. And I'm talking about it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're going to be spoiled. All right. Spider-Man Far From Home is the first standalone Spider-Man movie after the events of Infinity War and Endgame. After Peter Parker / Spider-Man has gone through more than any normal human being has, right? And it picks up after that, right? In Infinity War, Peter Parker gets dusted. He gets Thanos snaps and dies. And then in Endgame, he gets brought back to life. When they get the Infinity Gauntlet back and they undo what Thanos did, and then they have that massive battle in upstate New York with all of the Avengers versus Thanos and his crew, and right in front of Peter Parker's eyes, he watches his mentor, really sort of like the father figure in his life, his mentor Tony Stark, die, sacrifice his life to save the world. So now we have Peter Parker after all of these, dark and tragic things happen, and Far From Home, you see him struggling to come to terms with the fact that, his mentor is gone. Iron Man doesn't exist, and everywhere he seems to go, there are pictures of Iron Man, portraits of Iron Man. Everyone's talking about who's going to be the next Iron Man, and everyone's looking at Spider-Man to be the next Iron Man, because Spider-Man was Iron Man's apprentice, and he inherits the glasses, the Tony Stark glasses, and he gets all of this stuff, and but he's just also trying to be a kid in high school, and he's going on summer vacation, a European vacation with his club from school, and he's trying to ask out MJ, who he loves. And in the middle of that, he's meets Mysterio, who tricks him into giving giving him the Tony Stark glasses. Hold on. Let me pull up Far From Home here. Far From Home was made in 2019 and brought in Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio, and I forgot to mention earlier that Jacob Bolton, Badaloon, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, plays Ned Leeds. This movie got a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 7.4. Out of the 3 Tom Holland Spider-Man Spider-Verse movies, I would say that I think Far From Home is the weakest. But it is very sad. It's you know, he gets tricked by Mysterio into giving him the Tony Stark glasses, and then Mysterio pretty much turns the whole world against Spider-Man and uses all of the Stark Industry drones to attack London. And as Peter Parker is going to defeat him, he records a video of Peter Parker and then turns it against him at the end of the movie. You know, at the end of the movie, the end of Far From Home, MJ has figured out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and they start going out. And at the end of the movie, you know, they're swinging through the city, they're swinging through New York, when all of a sudden, for the first time since Spider-Man 3, we see J.K. Simmons coming back as J. Jonah Jameson for the Daily Bugle, and he shows up on the big screen and with this video that Mysterio had edited and fabricated that makes it sound like Peter Parker is the one that did the terrorist attack on London, and then says, you know, I have news for you guys. Spider-Man is Peter Parker, and like shows this big, you know, picture of him, and that's how the movie ends. So Spider-Man Far From Home, I don't want to give it a B. I'm going to put it after The Amazing Spider-Man in A. All right, and then lastly, we have 2021's, I believe it was 2021, Spider-Man No Way Home. Hold on. Spider-Man's No Way Home, 2021, 93% on Rotten Tomatoes and 8.2. Spider-Man No Way Home is phenomenal. It brings, for those of you that have not seen it and don't want spoilers, don't listen, but I'm pretty sure everyone knows by now that in Spider-Man No Way Home, it brings back Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. It brings back Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin, and Alfred Molina as Doc Ock, Jamie Foxx as Max Dillon, Rhys Ifans as the Lizard. We have Thomas Hayden Church as Sandman. Everyone comes back. And we have Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange. Everyone is in this movie. Everyone's in this movie. And it's so cool. It is so cool as someone that grew up, you know, watching Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man, to see him come back, to see Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin come back, to see Alfred come back as Doc Ock, right? Two of the most powerful, most famous and most recognized Spider-Man villains of all time. Willem Dafoe, he's so scary in this movie. His laugh, the movements of his body. Willem Dafoe is such an amazing actor. And as an actor myself, I would love to just spend an hour with Willem Dafoe, to really just learn from him. The ways that he does his movies, he's so amazing. I could talk forever about Spider-Man No Way Home. It's so cool. As Spider-Man goes to Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, this young teenager trying to get into college, is struggling as the whole world views him as an enemy, and now him and his two best friends have been denied from college because of the fact that they are friends with Spider-Man. And Peter Parker, as a teenager, thinks, well, I remember this wizard dude that I helped, save the world with, the universe with. Maybe he'll help me. And he goes to Doctor Strange and asks for help. But the only way for that to work is if everyone forgets who Peter Parker is, or everyone forgets that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And he goes, okay, but then Peter Parker says, no, I don't want MJ to forget. I don't want Ned to forget. I don't want my aunt or Happy. He goes, pretty much I want everyone that already knows that should know. And that ends up breaking the spell. And all of these old villains from previous Spider-Man movies come back. And now Spider-Man is trying to catch them all, just to send them back to their universes. And we get to see Jamie Foxx as Electro in a normal Electro costume. And he's going to send them back, but then he realizes that almost every single one of these people dies in their universes. So he sends them back, they're just going to die. And Aunt May goes, that's not what we do. That's not what we believe in. We try to help people. So he tries to help them, and he ends up helping Doc Ock. He can, Sandman's on his side. He's getting there with Electro, right? And Green Lizard, whatever he is, we don't really know. But then Green Goblin is just using him, and we see that, and we get this epic fight scene in Happy Hogan's apartment between Green Goblin and Spider-Man, Tom Holland's Spider-Man. And at the end of this fight, spoiler warnings, if you don't want to spoil, you shouldn't have been listening to this at all, but spoiler warnings, Aunt May dies at the end, right? And we see that, and now Tom Holland just crushes him, and he just gets dark. And all he wants is revenge. He becomes Sasuke. He wants to kill the Green Goblin. And at this point, you see Ned and MJ in Ned's place, and he has Doctor Strange's wizard ring, and he opens up a portal, and out pops Andrew Garfield Spider-Man as Peter Parker. And then out pops Tobey Maguire, Peter Parker Spider-Man. And when they realize this, and they sort of let them know what's going on, then they all go to find Tom Holland Spider-Man, and Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, who have had dark things happen in the past, are trying to stop the Tom Holland Spider-Man from making the mistakes that they did, right? Because in Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire kills the man that he believed killed Uncle Ben. And it ended up not being the guy that killed Uncle Ben, but he killed the person that he thought it was. And all it did was bring him darkness, right? And that was part of Spider-Man 3. In The Amazing Spider-Man, who does Spider-Man kill? I believe in The Amazing Spider-Man he kills somebody. I can't remember who it was. I don't know if he kills somebody, but he loses Captain Stacy, he loses Gwen Stacy, right? So they're both trying to stop the Tom Holland Spider-Man, from making the mistakes that they did. And then they all work together to take down all of these villains at the Statue of Liberty. The Statue of Liberty. What an amazing fight scene. Spider-Man always takes place in New York, and now they're going to take the fight to New York City. It's just incredible. Spider-Man No Way Home was an incredible movie. I'm putting it up here in S rank. I think it gets to go between Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man. All right, Venom. I've never seen Venom, so I'm going to put Venom in D rank for now. And I've never seen Into the Spider-Verse, so I'm going to put Spider-Verse down there for now. I'll put it above. I've heard Spider-Verse is really good, so I'll definitely be watching it, but I haven't seen it yet, so putting Spider-Verse down. Now that I'm looking at it, we're going to do a little bit of rearranging here, I think. I think I want to do a little bit of rearranging. All right, so we're going to move Spider-Man down here. I want to move The Amazing Spider-Man and Spider-Man Far From Home into B. No, what? I'm going to put Amazing Spider-Man in A. I'm going to leave Spider-Man 3. All right, this is my new. This is I think is going to be my final ranking of the Spider-Man tier list, which is going to be Spider-Man 2 is the best in S rank, followed by Spider-Man No Way Home, followed by an A rank Spider-Man, then Spider-Man Homecoming, then The Amazing Spider-Man, followed by Spider-Man Far From Home, and B, and then Spider-Man 3. And then in C rank, Spider-Man 2, Amazing Spider-Man 2, and then I don't really count these because I didn't see them. So, I've heard that Spider-Verse is really good, so just because I don't want to leave them in D, we'll put Spider-Verse in S, and then I'll put Venom in D, just because I haven't seen Venom in C. Okay, I'll leave Venom in D. Here is our tier list officially for these Spider-Man films. I'm curious to see how it lines up with other people's. Let's look at the alignment chart, right? Oh, that's not what I meant to do. Shoot. All right. Let's look at this is how the community ranks them. Here is how somebody ranks them. All right, so interesting. This person put Spider-Man 2 in first place, just like I did, followed by Spider-Verse, and then Spider-Man. That's interesting because I also put Spider-Man originally in S rank, and Homecoming, and then The Amazing Spider-Man, and then Spider-Man 3. Interesting that this person put Spider-Man 3 in S, and then Far From Home in A, Spider-Man 2 in A after that, Amazing Spider-Man 2, and then No Way Home in B. Interesting, followed by Venom. Interesting that they would do that. Interesting that they put No Way Home at the bottom. All right, let's see what this person does, what these people do. All right, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man. A lot of these people had very similar opinions to me, except that they put No Way Home. People haven't agreed with me with No Way Home, I guess. Let's see if I can find anyone that puts No Way Home in the top. This person right here. You know what? I agree with this. I agree with this order. I really do. I agree with this person's order. I don't know. I think Spider-Man 3 is better than Amazing Spider-Man 2. I really do. All right, anyway. That's going to be all for today's stream. I hope you guys enjoyed the Spider-Man film tier list. If you guys enjoyed this, I do want to do more tier lists during our streams in the future. The next one I'm thinking about doing is the Batography, the the Batman filmography, the Batman films, as Batman is my favorite superhero. So if this is something that people enjoyed, I think I definitely will do a Batman one in the future, maybe next week if I can remember to do it. Let's agree to disagree. Interesting. All right. I'm going to. That's it for today's stream, and I will see you guys next week. Hopefully, if I remember, I am traveling this week, so I get back I think on Thursday. So if I can remember and I'm not too exhausted, I will stream next Friday. All right. Take care, everybody.